Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to another live streaming of basic transfer pricing. And I would like to say thank you sa ating mga subscribers. Umabot na po tayo ng 713 subscribers. So thank you very much, and I would like to shout out also sa ating mga viewers, no? Natin. Okay. So I would like to say thank you sa mga viewers natin. I would like to shout out kina Emily, no, sa Negros, kay Mark, kina Banji diyan sa San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, kina GM diyan sa New Era, no, Quezon City, and sa mga kay Sir Eugene sa Timog, Quezon City, no. I'd like to shout out also sa mga taga Bacolod, and then sa mga taga Cebu, no? At sa Sipalay, Negros Occidental, sa mga kamag-anak natin yan. Good evening po sa inyong lahat, and welcome to another live streaming of basic transfer pricing, no? For those na hindi pa masyadong alam yung background, ano po ba yung transfer pricing? Transfer pricing po is a tool in taxation, no? Kaya nga pag sinabi mong transfer pricing, it's all about taxation. At anong klaseng taxation ito? Ito po yung taxation ng mga related parties or yung mga group of companies, no? Wherein meron silang sinasabi natin na transactions between them, na ang sabi po ng batas natin dito sa transfer pricing, kung ano yung relationship o paano ginawa yung transactions ng mga hindi related parties or hindi members of the group, dapat ganun din yung kanilang pricing ng goods and services ng related parties o yung anong man yung transactions nila, no? And shout out also kay Ma'am Fe Herrera, no? From Mandaluyong po siya, from Mandaluyong City. Thank you very much, Ma'am Fe, and congratulations, no? Kasi kahapon meron tayong 78 members sa Tax Advisors Group. Ngayon, magit 10 na naman yung nagpa-member, no, na in-approve ko. So, hopefully, itong filing season natin, magkaroon tayo ng more than 100 groups, no, which are virtual members. Kaya dapat na talaga tayo mag-update, mag-upgrade ng ating mga documentation sa Tax Advisors Group, and then post through na natin yung ating mga programa para sa mga members, no? Kasi parang ito na yung avenue. Kanina na kausap ko yung isang member ng Tax Advisors Group. Alam mo, sabi niya, ang laki daw ng nagiging impact sa kanya na nag-member siya ng Tax Advisors Group, na enhance, na boost yung moral niya being a bookkeeper. Di na siya natatakot humarap sa kliyente. Alam na niya kung paano yung tamang serbisyo. And since real estate broker siya, at ngayon, dahil nga sa pandemic, walang masyadong bumibili ng real estate, ang laking tulong daw po sa kanya. Pati pamilya niya, pati mga pamangkin niya, kapatid niya, tinuturuan na rin niya ng bookkeeping services na natutunan din po niya, at nagkaroon siya ng confidence dahil nga kasama tayo sa grupo at nagsishare tayo ng ating mga kaalaman. So thank you for that, no? Kaya i-share po natin yan sa iba, na kahit na online tayo or virtual yung ating way of communication, pero nagkakaroon tayo ng avenue na to learn from each other. So nagkakaroon po tayo ng additional services na nagiging kabuhayan po ng bawat isa sa atin, no? Kasi siya keep on increasing yung kanyang kliyente. So nakakatulong din siya, pati sa mga kapatid niya, pati sa mga pamangkin niya, tuturuan din niya. Nakaskade mo yung knowledge. So ang daming natututo, ang daming nakatutulungan, no? So yun yung purpose natin dito. Okay, so welcome to Basic Transfer Pricing Philippines. Ito namang Basic Transfer Pricing Philippines, this is also another avenue ng services na ma-offer po natin sa ating mga clients, especially yung may mga group of companies, no? So, yung mga gusto pang matuto, you read books about transfer pricing, at saka marami po tayong mga videos dito, pwede na rin ninyong umpisahan so that magkaroon din po kayo ng ideas, and then ma-improve yung services natin So, magkakaroon naman tayo ng mga kliyente at magiging kabuhayan na rin po natin, no? Okay. So, sa live streaming po natin dito sa basic transfer pricing, ang topics po natin tonight is about the transfer pricing issues involving intangibles. So, ano po bang mga issues nag-involve intangibles? This is also in relation with our live streaming doon po sa tax training na ang diniscuss naman natin doon is the preparation of financial statements or paano i-present yung intangibles sa financial statements. No, dito naman sa transfer pricing, ang topic naman natin dito, ito yung issues. Ano yung mga issues? Pag nag-prepare kayo ng financial statements, ano yung anticipate natin ng mga issues so that upon filing pa lang ng returns natin o ng income tax returns natin, na-anticipate na natin, hindi tayo makakaproblema. Nakakapag-comply tayo, whatever is the requirements. No? So, aside from the transfer pricing issues involving intangibles that we are going to discuss tonight, mayroon pa tayong isang case. No? This is the case of Corbus, India, Private Limited versus the DCIT or the Delhi Commissioner of Income Tax. No? So, ang date ng ano niya, ng promulgation niya is March lang 2020, no? March 5, 2020. Ito yung date of order, no? Okay. So, let's start with ito. Sagutin ko lang tong dito sa ating chat. Okay. So, shout out no sa mga viewers natin ulit at saka sa ating IT na nag-set nito, no? Kay Harry, thank you very much. Saka kay Marvin, saka kay Sir Eugene, no? So, thank you very much. Okay? So, let's now go to transfer pricing issues involving intangibles. But first and foremost, ano muna yung dapat natin alamin? Ano ba itong intangibles? So, what are these intangibles? Also, intangibles are defined by the Philippine Accounting Standards number 38. Ito yung mga bagay-bagay na wala siyang physical substance, walang non-monetary with non-monetary values and no physical substance, pero asset po siya ng company. And when we say asset, ano yun? May future economic benefits. That's why we have to consider sa transfer pricing, how do we value it? At saka isa pa, dito sa Pilipinas kasi, ang daming gumagawa ng financial statements na hindi mo makikita yung intangible sa kanila. But para sa akin, it's about time na maglalagay tayo ng intangibles natin sa financial statements natin because we are now living in a digitized world and ang digitization natin are intangibles. No? So, hindi na pwede yung dati na okay lang, pabayaan lang tayo na walang intangible sa balance sheet natin. Ngayon, hindi na pwede. Halimbawa, yung isang manufacturing companies, ang dami-dami niya ng intangibles. No? So, hindi na natin pabayaan na wala silang i-present na intangibles. Why? Because especially if there are transfer pricing issues that will crop up and the issues or the basis of that issues are intangibles and then wala pa sa balance sheet mo. No? Wala pa sa income statement mo, hindi ka nag-amortize. Halimbawa, so what happened? Pagdating na sa korte, talo na kaagad ang taxpayer, no? Pero kung ni-recognize mo yung intangibles, meron kang recording, properly reported, then kung may question man doon sa transfer pricing issues mo, then kaya mo siyang sagutin at hindi ka magkaroon ng deficiency taxes in the form of additional adjustment, no? So, yan po yung ihanda natin and anuhin natin yung mga issues, alamin natin yung mga issues ng intangibles. So what are the example of intangibles that we have? Yung mga example po natin, ito yung mga trade name. Ano ba yung mga example ng trade name? Ang dami mga sikat na trade names, no? Yung example ko nga na favorite, ito yung Nestle, di ba? Yung Nestle po na name, 1600 pa yan, no? And they are protected by the WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Office. At itong mga trade names po natin, kung gusto natin proteksyonan, dahil yan nagre-represent ng ating products, at kasama po yan sa mga marketing strategies natin. Why? Kasi pagka may trade name ka, proteksyonan mo yan dahil dyan ka identified ng mga customers mo. Pag naghanap ng goods mo, yung mga customers, yan ang hahanapin nila. That's why you have to protect your trade name. So, paano mo siya maproteksyonan? Legally, paparegister sa WIPO or sa dito sa Pilipinas natin, IPO, the Intellectual Property Office. No? May bayad po yan. Hindi lang tayo basta-basta na gagawa tayo ng business name, tapos pabayaan lang natin. Kasi kung halimbawa kukuha lang tayo ng business name, in-approve siya ng DTI, that is only good for 5 years. And hindi po yan sasabihin sa inyo ng DTI na pag binigay na sa inyo itong pangalan, forever sa inyo na to. No. Pagdating ng 5 years, mag-i-expire dyan, ibibigay na yan sa iba. No? Kaya nga, bago pa mag-expire yung name mo, hindi nga guarantee na bago pa mag-expire, mag-renewan sa DTI, still ibibigay pa rin yung name mo. Sometimes hindi na rin. No? Basta pag sinabi mo na 5 years ang validity na magagamit mo yung business name mo, hindi yan legally protected. So you cannot compel the DTI na pag nag-renew ka, ibibigay ulit sa iyo yung ganyang pangalan. No? So anong gagawin mo para protected ka? Punta ka doon sa IPO, sa Intellectual Property Office, at doon mo pa-register para hindi na siya gagamitin ng iba. May bayad po. No? Ano pa yung ating pa-register doon? Another example of intangibles are copyrights. Halimbawa, meron tayong mga sinulat na libro, may mga kinumpose tayong kanta. No? Yung mga kanta na yan, may copyrights yan. No? So, para protected yung copyrights mo, ay para pa-register mo rin sa National Library at saka doon sa IPO, no? Sa Intellectual Property Office. At pwede na bang gamitin niya ng iba? Of course, hindi na. Although yung copyrights, kahit hindi mo siya ipa-registered, protected ka talaga. Kasi sa iyo yun eh. The moment you create, you compose a song, whether ipa-register mo yan or hindi, hindi yan pwedeng kopyahin ng iba sa iyo. No? But you are not legally registered owner, kaya mahina yung protection mo as compared na nagpa-register ka sa IPO. And if you want a bigger scope ng protection mo, then pa-register mo pa rin yan. Aside from registering your copyrights in the IPO or the Intellectual Property Office in the Philippines, pa-register mo pa rin sa WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Office based in Switzerland, so that protected naman yung copyrights mo worldwide, no? May bayad din yun, may bayad. Wala pong libre, no? So, okay. Shout out uli, may mga additional viewers na tayo, no? So, thank you very much. And continue lang po tayo in our discussion about intangibles, no? So, what are the other examples of intangibles pa para mas naintindihan natin? Ito yung mga brand, no? Ito yung patent. Ano yung patent? Ito yung mga formula. Ito yung mga step-by-step process. Paano gagawin ang isang bagay, no? Na pagka nalaman mo to at ang benefits na madala nung product na meron kang patent o meron kang step-by-step process is produce mo siya in malaking volume at pambenta mo na, so may industrial use na siya, then anong gagawin mo? Register mo rin siya sa IPO so that protected din siya. Halimbawa, manufacturing company ka, ano yung mga posible na mga intangibles for being a manufacturer na dapat nire-report mo rin yan, kasi ang intangibles are assets. Dahil anong sabi natin sa assets? Ito yung may future economic benefit sa atin, no? So, anong gagawin mo pagka manufacturing companies ka lang? Halimbawa, so you recognize na meron kang intangibles. What are your intangibles? Doon sa mga previous cases that we discussed, meron na tayong discussions about the Coke, no? Yung Coke, ang dami niyang intangibles. Ano yung mga intangibles niya? We start with the name, no? Yung name niya na brand, ano yung brand name niya? Coke, Coca-Cola, no? And then, ano pa? Yung kanyang trademark, no? Tsaka yung kanyang trade name, no, na Coca-Cola. Yung mga designs niya, no, kasama yan. Yung logo, ano pa, yung nakapatent pa sa kanya o kaya naka-protected din siya. Yung hugis ng bote niya, no? Yung na sexy. Kaya nga pag sexy, yung isang babae, nung sabi mo sa kanya, nung tawag ng iba sa kanya, Coca-Cola body, no? Kasi sexy body yung bote ng Coke. So, yan, naka-ano din yan, naka-protected, legally protected din yan. Hindi yan pwedeng gayahin ng iba, no? So, ganyan po ang sinasabi natin na intangibles, no? Wala siyang physical attributes, pero meron siyang future economic benefits, no? So, let's try to see the guidance ng OECD transfer pricing guidance. No, ito yung OECD transfer pricing guidance for multinational enterprises and tax administrations. Kasi sino may gawa nito? The OECD or the Center for Tax Policies and Administrations of the World. No? So ano yung mga sinasabi nila na special consideration for intangibles at bakit or why? Because very important po sa atin ang intangibles, no? At ang sabi ko nga sa inyo, we're now living in a digitized world, hindi pwedeng wala tayong intangibles. Ano pa mga example ng intangibles? Yung mga websites natin, no? Kahit ito YouTube channel, these are intangibles, no? Okay. So, since alam na natin kung ano itong intangibles, nasabi nga natin, these are non-monetary assets with no physical substance, but meron silang future economic benefits. No? So, ano yung mga hirap na maranasan natin when we try to recognize intangibles? Number one is the identification, no? How do we identify intangibles? Paano natin makikilala na meron na tayong intangibles? No? Generic kasi ang intangibles, no? Pero pagdating na doon sa mga registrable at saka yung mga industrial na intangibles natin, then may batas na talaga dyan. Republic Act 8293, yun yung ating intellectual property code in the Philippines, no? So, mahirap i-identify po yung intangibles, no? Although, sa guidelines natin, nag-set na sila ng mga guide so that alam natin, no? So, what are the intangibles and how do we recognize them, no? Okay. Okay. So, we have the categories of intangibles, no? So, when we say categories of intangibles, ito yung marketing intangibles, tapos meron tayong tinatawag na soft intangibles, and then hard intangibles, meron tayong routine and non-routine intangibles, no? So, yan ang mga classification or categories ng intangibles. So, example ng intangibles, we have patents, no? So, ano yung patent? Patent is a legal instrument that grants an exclusive right to the owner to use a given invention for a limited period of time within a specific geography. So, pag sinabi mo limited period of time, ang patent usually is 20 years, no? And within a specific geography, ibig sabihin, kung dito mo yan in-apply sa Pilipinas, dito ka lang magiging protected sa Pilipinas, hindi sa kasama yun sa ibang bansa, no? And then we have the know-how and the trade secrets. Ano itong mga know-how at saka itong mga trade secrets? Yung know-how natin, ano pa? Yung sinasabi natin na AI, no? Artificial Intelligence. I would like to shout out si Ma'am Lilian Yao. Good evening po sa lahat, sabi ni Ma'am Lilian, no? And thank you very much, Ma'am Lilian, for watching. No, always yan si Ma'am Lilian dun sa YouTube channel natin na tax training, nandun din siya palagi, at saka dito sa ating basic transfer pricing Philippines. And then, nandyan din siya pagka nag-live streaming tayo din doon sa Smart Tips, no? By Ma'am Elsa. Talagang hindi kakayanin ng powers natin yung Smart Tips ngayon kasi filing season. O kaya nga sabi ko, at saka yung Smart Gardening, sabi ko after ng, ng filing, talagang magano tayo doon, mag-give time talaga to produce videos para doon sa mga channels na yon. Anyway, yung purpose naman natin doon sa mga channels na yon is talagang to share our insights, our mga tips na mapakinabangan din naman ng iba, no? So, tuloy po tayo sa intangibles. At saka, bakit napaka-importante ng intangibles? In some other countries, pag nakita nila sa balance sheet mo na may intangibles ka, and halimbawa, you're applying for a loan, yung mag-evaluate ng capacity to pay mo, mag-evaluate ng solvency mo halimbawa, or yung magbibigay sa iyo ng credit rating, may points ka na kaagad pagka nakita nila na mayroon kang intangible sa balance sheet mo. No? So, intangibles can be patents, no? So, yung patent na yan, sabi natin, ang patent, ina-apply natin yan sa Intellectual Property Office, and the duration or the protection ng patent is 20 years, no? So, what happened after 20 years? After 20 years, yung patent na pinaregister mo will become off patent. And, pag nagiging off patent na siya, anong mangyayari? It will become a public domain. When we say public domain, kahit sino pwede nang gumamit, no? Kasi halimbawa, pinapatent mo yung paano paggawa ng kaldero, no? So, alam naman natin yung kaldero natin na yung industrial or yung utility niya, nagagamit sa pagluto, nagagamit sa marami siyang pwedeng uses, no? So, pinapatent mo halimbawa yan. So, after 20 years, it becomes off patent. Sabi natin, it will become a public domain. So, lahat ng tao na may gusto, gamitin niya yung patent mo na yan para mag-produce sila ng sarili nilang kaldero, no? So, ano yung purpose ng batas o ng gobyerno natin? Bakit after 20 years, the patent will become off patent at pakinabangan na ng lahat to increase the utilities of the patent by the humanity, no? Para hindi lang, kasi ang contention or yung rationale doon is, sa 20 years, okay, ikaw yung nag-imbento. Sa 20 years na in-exploit mo, gumawa ka ng maraming product na binenta mo, kumita ka na, no? So, it's about time na i-share mo naman sa iba. Kasi, although ikaw yung nag-invent, binigyan ka naman ng 20 years na exclusive sa'yo. So, after that, para mapakinabangan ng mas nakakarami, then, allowed na siya na gamitin ng iba. Hindi na sila mapoprosecute, hindi na sila kakasuhan kung gagamitin nila yung patent mo, no? Kasi off patent na. Okay. Kaya yung iba na mga may ideas na naghihintay na yan sila ng mga sellable or mga sikat na products na malapit na mag-off patent, no? Kasi pag nag-off patent na, pwede na nilang gayahin. Okay. So, know-how and trade secrets. Ano yung mga know-how and trade secrets? Ano to? Proprietary information, no? Or knowledge that assist or improve a commercial activity, but that are not registered for protection in the manner of a patent or trademark. Ito namang know-how, ito yung parang mga secret recipe, no? Hindi sila pwede i-register. Bakit? Kasi kaya sila beneficial, kaya sila nagbibigay ng halaga o kaya pakinabang dahil sikreto. So, ibig sabihin, pag pinaregister mo yan, marami na makakalam. It ceases to be a secret. So, wala na siyang benefits, no? So, yung benefits niya, wala na. Kasi bakit? Yung formula mo, halimbawa, secret formula mo, alam na ng lahat. Hindi wala ka ng protection. Hindi mo na siya solo. So, marami na ang gagamit noon. Wala ng competition, wala ka ng nakaka-produce na sila din ng sarili nila, same as what you're producing. So, wala ng wala ng bisa pa na itago mo. So, it ceases to be secret formula. Okay. So, meron pang shoutout, no? Masabi ni Ma'am Lilian, opo ma'am, dami deadline kasi, dami deadline talaga, April na. Alam mo, ako para na akong sinisilaban ngayon dahil bukas April na, no? And then April, umpisa na yung klase ko sa international taxation na 6 months, no? Nag-enroll ako ng 6 months advanced program in advanced program certificate in international taxation, and that is 6 months, no? Na tatapusin mo. No? Ang bayad is 100,000, no? Pero kailangan natin. Bakit natin kailangan? Dahil tayo ay global na. So, kung ang alam natin ay taxation lang ng Pilipinas, then paano tayo makapagbigay ng serbisyo kung yung kliyente natin mayroon na silang ibang businesses na nandun sa ibang bansa. So that is in anticipation na magiging serviceable pa rin tayo sa clients natin na may mga other businesses in other countries, no? So may question po, no? Sagutin muna natin yung question ni Ma'am Fe Herrera. Question po, ma'am, paano po ma'am hindi po re-recognize as assets po mga trademarks or trade name, instead nire-record as expense, no? Registration fees and dues for a long period. Paano po mako-correct ito, ma'am, no? Okay, so yun po yung question ni Ma'am Fe, no? Balikan natin yung question ni Ma'am Fe later. So, shout out muna kay Jeffrey Salceda, no? Sabi niya good evening po, no? Good evening and thank you for watching po, Sir Jeffrey Salceda, no? Okay, balikan natin yung question ni Ma'am Fe Herrera, no? So yung sabi niya, paano po ma'am hindi po nire-record sa assets po mga trademarks or trade names, instead nire-record lang as an expense, no? Halimbawa registration fees, mga dues for a long period. Paano po mako-correct ito, ma'am? So actually yung group of companies na nag-consult din sa akin, ganyan din ang concern nila, no? Kasi bakit? For a long time, hindi rin naman hinahanap ng SEC, hindi rin hinahanap ng mga regulatory bodies natin. Just like transfer pricing, no? Nandiyan na yung transfer pricing, 2013 pa. Pagdating ng audit, hindi naman hinahanap. So, walang compliance. But nung nagkaroon na ng problema yung ABS-CBN, no? And through the Senate inquiry, nagkaroon ng mga tanong yung Senate about transfer pricing, saka pa lang tinutukan natin yung transfer pricing. Bakit? Ano yung ugali na yan? Reactive, hindi proactive. So, ganyan din tayo sa intangibles. Kaya tama tong concern ni Ma'am Fe Herrera. Nasa tagal ng panahon, hindi natin nire-report, and then ngayon bigla nating i-report. So, ano yung gagawin natin? Para sa akin naman, since ngayon lang din naghihigpit, no? Dahil nga digitized economy na natin. So very particular na tayo in intangible assets because ano ba yung mga ginagamit natin dito? Websites natin, mga mga intangibles na nandyan, no? Sa being a digitized business. So kailangan na natin i-recognize. So ang sabi mo, sa matagal na period hindi natin nire-report, paano natin umpisahan ngayon, no? Ang intangibles kasi, yun yung mga masusunod natin na topics. Paano mo siya i-recognize? Actually, na-discuss natin yan doon sa tax training. Paano mo siya i-recognize? Paano mo i-measure? And paano mo i-value? No? Para sa akin, kung hindi man natin siya na-i-report noon, then, ngayon, kailangan na natin i-report. Why? Kasi kung noon hindi siya hinahanap, ngayon hahanapin na. No? So, hindi na tayo maghintay na halimbawa yun yung sinasabi ko nga bakit ko to in-enforce kasi gumagawa ko ng transfer pricing analysis and in the cases, no, na mga experience ng ibang bansa na yung kanilang transfer pricing ay audit is tuloy-tuloy na, nakakarating na sa Supreme Court nila yung mga cases. Ang ina-anticipate ko dito is gumagawa ko ng transfer pricing sa mga kliyente. Doon sa balance sheet nila, walang mga intangibles. And then here comes the issues in transfer pricing audit about intangibles. So ano yun? lugi na, talo na kaagad yung kliyente mo. Bakit? Ang issue is intangibles and then wala sa balance sheet yung intangibles. Ibig sabihin, misrepresented yung iyong financial statements. So pagka nagkaroon pa ng issue, intangibles na involved, paano yan? Ibig sabihin, deceiving, misrepresented, no? At pag may mga element na ganyan, pagdating sa korte, talo na kakaagad, no? So anong gagawin natin? We have to report intangibles now. Start now. No, kasi huwag na nating isipin yung matagal ng panahon hindi na-report. So ngayon, mag-report na tayo. So paano natin i-report? Yun na yung papasok na yung how do we value. No? Kasi kung titingnan natin ang valuation ng intangibles, although yung BIR sabi na natin cost lang talaga, hindi siya nagre-recognize ng fair value. No? So at cost lang. So magkano mo ba na-produce yung nagastos mo to produce that intangibles, no? Sabi ng iba, ma'am, nagbayad lang naman kami sa BFAD, 1,000 o 1,900. Alam nyo, yung pagbayad nyo yan sa BFAD ng 1,900, yun lang yung niregister nyo na, i-license nyo na yung product. Pero paano yung ginawa nyo bago pa kayo nakabuo ng product at pinaregister nyo sa BFAD? Kasama po yun sa valuation, no? Halimbawa, gumawa kayo, no? Kasi may inumpisahan din ako noon na yung fruit vinegar, no? Bago mo mabuo yung fruit vinegar mo, nag-experience ka muna lahat ng fruits, lahat na ginastusan mo siya, no? Meron kang mga kinuha na mga food technician, bumili ka ng mga materials, kung ano-ano ginawa mo, lahat po yan kasama. So, hindi ibig sabihin na nagbayad ka sa BFAD, yung lang bayad sa BFAD, yun lang ang i-recognize mo na gastos mo dyan sa pag-develop mo ng product. Hindi po ganun. Magmula sa inception, lahat-lahat ng mga ginastos mo dyan, sa mga kinuha mo, mga advisors, mga experts, nagbayad ka ng professional fees, hanggang doon na sa lawyer for the licensing, lahat yan, i-recognize mo yan. And that is kasama sa cost in developing the product, no? So kasama yan. Since ang sabi ng BIR sa pag-value po ng intangibles at cost lang, then i-recognize mo na lahat ng cost, no? And then hindi mo yan pwedeng i-outright na i-expense mo lang kaagad. Although sabi ng iba, ang research and development is outright expense. Sa ibang bansa naman, meron silang batas na pag sumobra na sa 3% yung research and development, capitalize mo na. Pero pag 3% na lang and below ng sales is expense, no? Kasi ibig sabihin maliit lang. So pagka halimbawa malaki na yung research and development mo, then may dinedevelop ka ng product. That cost that you incur in the development of the product through research and development, dapat kasama yan. At hindi yan piso-piso lang, ha? Malaki yan, no? Pati yung mga oras mo doon sa pag-deliver, yung mga research work mo, kasama yan, no? Binavalue natin yan. At kasama yan sa costing natin ng intangibles natin. So, nakaregister na tayo at cost, no? I-recognize natin yan sa ating balance sheet and then i-amortize natin, no? Halimbawa na lang, isang halimbawa din sa intangibles, yung rights, leasehold rights, no? Yung sa mga stalls, halimbawa. Ang term ng lease mo is 3 years. Then, yung leasehold rights mo, i-value mo rin siya, i-amortize mo rin siya for 3 years, no? So, depende kasi kung anong klaseng intangibles, yun yung i-recognize mo. So, yung tanong ni Ma'am Fe na ni-record lang daw na expense kasi maliit lang, try to review, no? Try to reconsider. Kasi ang iniisip lang natin, kaagad, yung registration fee lang, no? So, yung sabi ko sa inyo na, kung if you try to think deeper, hindi lang yan registration fee. Kasi bago mo pa-register yan, ang dami mo ng cost na na-incurred. So, lahat yan, ilista mo at kasama yan ngayon sa cost ng intangibles mo. No? So, sabi mo, na-report na noon, ngayon lang i-report, ano na, para sa akin, kailangan i-report mo na ngayon. O kung hindi mo yan na-report noon, pabayaan mo na kasi hindi ka rin naman hinanapan. Pero ngayon, since ina-anticipate natin na maghanap na tayo, may transfer pricing guidelines na tayo sa audit, no? And then meron na tayong digitized economy, so you cannot do away with the intangibles. Kaya mag-report na kayo sa balance sheet nyo. No? Okay. So, know-how on trade secrets, it ceased to be a trade secret pag alam na. Kaya hindi yan nire-register. No? Trademarks, trade names, and brands. So, how will you assign value to the trademarks, trade names, and brands? Merong ibang mga individuals or corporations na talagang nagde-develop sila ng brands, no? At saka trade names at saka trademarks. Anong ginagawa nila? Mag-develop sila ng mga marks or brands, and then pinapasikat nila yon, no? Through advertising, kung ano mga ginagawa nila para sumikat na. And then after that, yung iba, binibenta nila, no? So, kung halimbawa ikaw naman yung bumili doon sa trademarks or trade names and brands, paano mo siya i-value? Yung acquisition cost mo, paano mo binili yung trademarks, trade names, or brands na yan, no? Kasi kagaya ng yung si Kenny Rogers, di ba? Doon sa kanyang story ng life niya, na nag-involve siya doon sa restaurant, no? Tapos nung sumikat na yung restaurant, binenta niya. No? So, nagkapera siya. Anong binenta niya doon? Kasama na yung pangalan niya, kasama na yung intangibles. So, yung bumili sa kanya, ano yung i-recognize niya doon sa books niya? Yung intangibles ng pagbili niya, yung cost ng trade name, ng trademarks, or ng brands ng Kenny Rogers. No? Okay. Rights and contracts and government licenses, no? So those are also intangibles. Kaya nga sabi, alam nyo yung umpisa ko na sinasabi na, mag-report na kayo ng intangibles. Ma'am, wala kami intangibles. Okay? Manufacturing company ka, wala kang intangibles, imposible, no? So ito, kasama to sa intangibles, ha? Rights under contracts and government licenses. Ano to mga government licenses? No? Yung mga, halimbawa, franchises. May mga sasakyan ka, no? Binigyan ka ng franchise ng gobyerno, kasama yun as intangibles, no? So, itong mga rights sa contracts, yung sabi natin na leasehold rights mo, yung iba, pagka halimbawa, meron silang leasehold rights ng indefinite sa isang stall o sa isang market, pag ayaw na nila, binibenta nila yung rights, no? Kahit yung sa land natin dito sa Pilipinas, halimbawa, walang title yung lupa, binili mo. Ano yung binili mo doon? Rights. Pagka halimbawa na gusto mo ibenta, ano yung benta mo na naman doon? Rights also. And rights are intangibles. No? Okay. Sige, licenses and similar limited rights in intangibles. So they are transferred by means of license or similar contractual arrangement. So ano pa yung mga linalicense? Software, no? Software, websites, they are all intangibles. Kaya ngayon, pag sinabi mo, ma'am, wala kami intangibles, imposible. Kaya nga sabi ko kaagad doon sa mga maglagay kayo kahit konti lang. Ma'am, magkano ba ngayon magpa-develop ng website, no? Baka sabihin nyo naman, yung binayad nyo lang sa programmer nyo, no? Before that, hindi naman programmer yung gumagawa, no? So, value nyo na lahat. Siguro, ang magiging problema nyo diyan yung costing. O, paano kayo magko-costing ng intangibles? No? Okay. Goodwill and ongoing concern value. Ano itong goodwill? Yung goodwill kasi, ito na yung pinakamatagal na intangibles at pinakaunang intangibles na alam natin. So, ang alam na natin dyan, karamihan is goodwill. No? Pero ngayon, dumami na ang intangibles, hindi lang goodwill. At ang goodwill, hindi yan na-amortize. No? We have one case, yung ADECO versus the Eastern High Court of ano ba yan? Norway, yung Norwegian High Court, na anong nangyari doon. Yung goodwill, inamortize nila for 16 years. At 57 million a year yung kanilang amortization, no? Or depreciation nila dun sa goodwill. So, anong ginawa ng Eastern High Court at saka yung tax authority ng Norway, dinisallow. Why? Anong contention nila? Yung goodwill, that is not an operating expense, no? Para i-deduct mo yan doon sa operating expenses mo, hindi tama. Why? Because yung goodwill na yan, mga one-time transactions na lang. And in fact, if you try to look at yung goodwill na kuha lang nila doon sa mga acquisitions nila ng ibang companies. So, paano mo i-amortize yung isang bagay? At cost. No? So, wala namang cost yung goodwill. Kasi, di-recognize lang nila doon sa books. And then, din-depreciate nila for 16 years at 57 million. So, dinis-allow yun ng High Court. Huh? Okay. Okay. Group synergies. No? Yung group synergies, kaya nga may mga related parties nagpo-form ng group. No? Kasi in group, there is strength. No? So, may group synergies. There are also intangibles. Okay. So, how about contractual terms? No? Yung na contracts mo, may mga intangibles din dyan. No? Okay. So, what are the functions, assets, and risks related sa intangibles? No? So, itong mga functions, halimbawa, ito na, yung manufacturing, no? Manufacturing company. Yung function mo is manufacturing. So, we have what we call as manufacturing intangibles and also marketing intangibles. So, ano yung papasok mo doon sa manufacturing intangibles? Paano ba mag-manufacture ang isang company? So, magma-manufacture ka, anong gagamitin mo? Formula, no? Process, recipe, lahat. Kasi magma-manufacture ka. Ano pa? Yung system, no? Maganda yung system mo. Kaya competitive yung product mo kasi papaganda mo yung proseso, no? So, those are intangibles. Manufacturing intangibles. Ano pa? Yung mga ini-embed mo doon sa product mo. Kagaya halimbawa ng mga brand, no? Kasama yan. Pag nag-manufacture ka ng product, mina-manufacture mo according to the specification ng nagawa mo na, napapatent mo na, no? So, manufacturing intangibles yan. How about marketing intangibles? Marketing intangibles mo, nandiyan na yung mga logo mo, brands. Why? Because when you market, nag-advertise ka, ano yung ina-advertise mo? Yung brand mo. No? Kasi dyan nakikilala ang product mo. So those are what we call as marketing intangibles. No? Okay. So, ano-anong mga issues that will crop up sa transfer pricing when it comes to intangibles, no? Halimbawa, meron na tayong mga intangibles na recognize na natin. So, pagdating sa usapan, halimbawa, nagkaroon ka na ng transfer pricing audit at ino-audit ka na ngayon, and then ano makikita nila? Ano yung posibleng makikita ng examiner during the transfer pricing audit na ang issue is about intangibles, no? So, ito yung mga pwedeng i-disallow, no, ng examiner, and then magkakaroon ka ng assessment na extra because of the intangibles, no? Siguro yung isa dyan is yung recognition mo ng intangibles, no? So, number one na yan, which is the common problem now. Ano yun? Hindi mo ni-recognize na may intangibles ka when in fact there is, no? Kasi sabi ko nga, manufacturing companies ka, may license ka sa BFAD, imposible na wala kang intangibles. Kasi yung license mo pa lang sa BFAD, that is already an intangible. No? Okay. So, ano pa? Ano pa yung mga posibleng issues natin sa transfer pricing pagka na-audit na tayo? Yung valuation. No? Bawa, yan ang karamihan na nakakarating talaga sa Supreme Court. Bakit? Binalyo ng taxpayer, no? Yun yung mga famous case ng Amazon, no? Google, yung mga pag-transfer nila ng mga assets from one company to another company, na ito lang yung valuation, and then sabi ng IRS, ito dapat, no? Several millions or billions pa. Pati yung DHL, no? Yung DHL na tin-transfer din yung ownership ng business. Pero ang sabi ng IRS is undervalued. So, ano yung issue doon? Valuation, no? So, ang sabi ng taxpayer, 200 million lang. Sabi ng tax authority, 3 billion. Oh, so makarating siya ngayon sa court. Ano sasabihin ng court? Yung court na yung mga fix, no? Kung magkano yung value ng intangibles. And usually, binababahan siya ng court and then nagbabayad ang taxpayer ng additional, no? For the adjustment. Kakaroon ng deficiencies. So, yun ang nangyayari po. So, recognition, valuation, measurement. Paano natin i-measure naman ngayon yung intangibles natin? Pag sinasabi natin measurement, how many years yung life niya, no? So, depende na yan sa intangibles na meron ka or sa category, no? Kung halimbawa naman, ni-recognize mo siya na indefinite, may indefinite ba na intangibles, no? Ang intangibles, sabi ng classification, meron na indefinite. But sometimes, yung akala mo indefinite na intangibles na yan, nagkakaroon niya ng impairment. Halimbawa, sabi mo, oh, maganda yung brand ko, so forever na to. Eh, nagkaroon ng product substitute. O kaya, nagka-problema ka, wala ka ng raw materials na supply. So, yung sinasabi mo na intangibles na yun, wala na, impaired na, no? So, magkaroon ka ng adjustment doon. Okay. So, anong suggestion natin doon dito sa transfer pricing issues involving intangibles? Mag-umpisa na kayo na mag-recognize, no? Halimbawa, meron kayong website. Website is an intangible. Software, gumagamit kayo ng accounting software, gumagamit kayo ng software sa pag-process doon sa manufacturing mo or whatever, sa pag-deliver mo ng services, no? So, may intangible kayo. Halimbawa, e-services, ano yun? Intangible sigurado yun. Why? Kasi yung e-services mo, anong ginagamit mo dyan? Yung service providers mo or you are doing services through the internet, no? So, those are intangibles. Kaya yung mga nagsasabing, ma'am, wala kaming intangibles, you think otherwise, no? At saka yung iba, kahit noon pa, nung nag-umpisa ako sa transfer pricing, sasabihin nila agad, ay ma'am, hindi applicable sa amin. Ma'am, wala kaming ganyan. Kasi hindi pa nila inaalam kung ano yung transfer pricing. Sasabihin na nila na wala kaming ganyan. Paano mo nga, hindi ba sabi na wala kang ganyan dahil hindi mo alam, no? And then here comes, tatawag na naman, ma'am, paano to yung kliyente ko? Ang sabi, ganito daw. Sabi ko, transfer pricing yan, no? So, yung sabi na hindi ka required o hindi kasama. So, para sa akin kasi, ang ginagawa ko kasi sa buhay ko is proactive, be proactive. O minsan, kailangan mo pang mag-advance, no? Kasi halimbawa, kung ano lang yung nangyayari ngayon, diyan ka palang magagawa ng paraan, then it's too late, no? Yun nga yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na may classmate ako noong 2016 from Russia, no? Wala pa siyang alam about transfer pricing. And then nag-aral lang siya at that time, pinaaral siya ng company because meron na silang letter of authority for transfer pricing audit. Oh my goodness, sabi ko, kawawa naman tong babae na to. Ang ganda-ganda pa naman, no? Ganda-ganda ng mga Russians. Kung kailan lang under audit na siya, saka pala mag-aral, it's too late, no? Kaya mag-anticipate na tayo. Kagaya itong digitized economy, ano ba yung mga opportunities natin? Ano ba yung pwedeng gawin natin sa sarili natin so that makatribe tayo during the digitized world? No? Ay, hindi na ako marunong sa computer, matanda na ako, ayaw mo na. Anong gusto mo? Baka matay na lang, no? Kasi ayaw mo na. Walang ganyan, no? Walang salita na ayaw, kasi buhay pa tayo. So, meron pa tayong mga responsibility sa pamilya natin, sa sarili natin, kaya huwag aayaw. Since, ang nakasanayan mo yung hindi digitized na world, at ngayon, ito na yung nasa harap mo, digitized world, hindi ka palabasin, kagaya ngayon, lockdown na naman, totally tayo, no? For a few, 6 o'clock. Hindi ka palabasin, anong gagawin mo? Magmukmuk sa bahay, magagalit. You are not proactive, no? Reactive ka, at saka hindi ka naghahanap ng opportunities, no? Maghanap ka ng opportunities, anong gagawin mo? Improve mo yung kaalaman mo about computers, no? At yung sabi na nga natin, intangible lahat yan. no? Kaya naghahanap tayo ng intangibles, lahat yan are intangibles. No? Okay. So, wala na tayong question, no? So, we will proceed with our discussion on the tax case, no? Itong tax case ng Corbus, India. Okay. So, reminder po lang po natin sa mga nagpe-prepare dyan ng ating mga financial statements. Diba, meron na tayong seminar, no? Nakadalawang seminars na tayo about the tax preparer. So, sana naman, meron na kayong guide on how to prepare your financial statements. At idagdag nyo to ngayon on the intangibles, no? So, dapat meron na kayong intangibles reported in your financial statements. And in reporting the intangibles in your financial statement, anticipate nyo na rin na magkakaroon ng transfer pricing issues yung inyong intangibles. That's why, during the reporting, ayusin nyo na, hindi yan kung ano-ano na lang ilalagay ninyo na alam nyo magkakaroon ng tax consequence, no? Siguro next week, doon sa tax training natin, magkaroon na tayo ng tax issues, no? In the preparation of financial statements. Kasi, para sa akin, kailangan dahil prepare lang tayo ng financial statements, hindi natin iisipin na meron palang tax issues ito. So, ano mangyayari? Ma-assess tayo, no? So, magkaroon tayo ng discussions ng ganyan. So, lahat ng knowledge natin, alam natin na makakatulong sa iba, yan, tuloy-tuloy lang po natin. Why? Kasi yung purpose naman talaga natin na maraming matuto at maraming makapag-comply. No? So, itong transfer pricing, huwag niyong isipin na, ay, hindi po kami kasali dyan. Pang ano lang yan. No? Nag-argue pa nga kami ng isang taga-BIR kasi ang sabi niya, pang ano lang yan, pang cross-border taxation lang ang transfer pricing. Wala yung local kasi pagka local, walang mawawala. Yung hindi i-report ng isang company, nire-report naman ng isang company. Di po yung totoo. Why? Kasi ang transfer pricing, may local yan, may domestic. No? Andyan nga sa transfer pricing guidelines, no? Does not apply only to cross-border taxation transactions but also to domestic transactions, no? So, ang daming issues ng transfer pricing kasama na yung mga domestic, no? So, take note lang na pag nag-prepare na po tayo ng financial statements natin, we disclose the intangible assets. Saan po natin siya ilagay? Doon sa other non-current assets, no? Under non-current assets, ilagay natin doon intangibles. Pagdating na naman doon sa disclosure to financial statements, ano yung i-disclose natin? No? Halimbawa, other non-current assets, intangibles, note 16. Pagdating doon sa note 16, ano yung ilalagay natin? I-explain mo about intangibles. Ano bang klaseng intangibles yan? Halimbawa, sabihin mo na website was developed on ganon-ganon at a cost of ganito. So, inamortize siya or dinepreciate siya ng company for 3 years na ganon. So, mayroon kang explanation about intangibles. Halimbawa naman yung intangibles mo is website or software, no? Or leasehold rights or trademark or patents. Then, ilagay mo na doon sa minsan kasi ang trademark or patent, sinasabi natin at cost lang. Kung na-claim mo na lahat ng cost, then ilagay mo lang, i-disclose mo lang doon sa intangibles mo other than current assets, pero wala ng amount. Parang goodwill din, no? Pag halimbawa yung goodwill ubos na, o kaya wala na talaga siyang value, ilagay mo lang doon, pero wala na siyang amount, no? Zero na. In that case, meron tayong disclosures about intangibles, no? Okay. So, wala nang shout out. So, let's go to our next topic, which is about the Corbus India Private Limited versus the Delhi Commissioner of Income Tax, no? Okay. So, March 2022 nagkaroon ng decision. Okay. So, ano po yung case? This case is about what? This case is about new Corpus Delhi na company. Ano yung functions niya? Ano yung mga services involved niya? E-services, no? Or IT. So, anong ginawa dito? Ginawan ko to ng ano ng diagram, no? Si Corpus India is a subsidiary ni GTICL, no? Yun yung parent company niya. Ano yung services na binibigay niya? E-services, no? Yung sa IT technologies. Ito naman si GTI, meron pa siyang next na ultimate parent company, si International Limited, no? LLC or Limited Liability Corporation. So si Corbus India is in Noida, India, no? Doon siya. Yun yung parang economic zone, yung sa atin parang PESA, no? Philippine Economic Zone. Sa kanila economic zone din. Nandoon sila. Ano yung issue dito? Si Corbus India, meron siyang binebenta na services. Yun na nga yung IT services. Ngayon, meron siyang accounts receivable sa kanyang financial statement. So, anong ginawa nung transfer pricing officer in India? Kasi may mga amount ng accounts receivable na malaki at saka over 45 days na. So, anong ginawa ng transfer pricing officer? Nag-upward adjustment siya ng receivables. Ano yung ginawa niya doon sa upward adjustment? Dinagdagan niya ng income ang Corbus India through interest, no? Kasi tiningnan niyo yung accounts receivable, ang laki. Lahat ng accounts receivable na over 45 days na impose siya ng interest na 17.7% at yun yung dinagdag niya na other income ng Corpus India, no? So, nagkaroon ng assessment, no? Okay. Ito yung tinatawag niya na upward adjustment on receivables, no? Na over 45 days at an interest of 17.7%, no? Okay. So, of course, hindi pumayag yung taxpayer, hindi pumayag si Corbus India. Anong ginawa niya? Nag-appeal siya, no? Okay. But aside from na nag-appeal siya, aside from the findings doon sa accounts receivable na inimposan ng interest, meron pa siyang ibang findings yung transfer pricing officer, no? By the way, yung India pala, may sarili din siyang legislation, specific legislation on transfer pricing, no? May sarili siyang Transfer Pricing Act, no? At usually, kahit na hindi nila sasabihin na hindi nila binabasihan ang transfer pricing guidelines, if you try to look at, doon pa rin sa transfer pricing guidelines ng OECD, naka-anchor yung kanilang transfer pricing guidelines, no? Although, ang India requires a very extensive documentation in transfer pricing. Kaya nga yan ang ginagaya na rin ngayon ng ating mga tax authority po dito sa Pilipinas. Ano yun? Yung documentation requirements. That's why ito na yung documentation requirements, BIR Form 1709, that you are going to attach to your income tax return pagdating po nitong April 15, no? So, who are mandatory companies na required to attach 1709. So, number 1 na doon yung large taxpayers, no? Number 2, yung mga companies enjoying tax incentives. So, mga PESA registered enterprises, BOI registered enterprises, no? May tanong pa nga dyan na kasama ba ang cooperative? Siyempre, ang cooperative is also an entity doing business. So, kung mayroon siyang related party transactions, then yes, no? And then, yung mga companies na loss for 2 consecutive years and current years. So, all in all, losing siya ng 3 years, mandatory din na ma-file ng BIR Form 1709. Ano pa? Yung halimbawa, large taxpayers ka na, pero hindi ka naman umabot ng 150 million ang sales, and 90 million of that sales is between related parties. Then, ano yun? May threshold. So, kung may threshold, hindi ka, kung below that yung sales, then hindi ka gawa ng transfer pricing documentations under 1709 na form. But, ano naman yung gagawin mo? You disclose in your notes to financial statement the reason why hindi ka naglagay or hindi ka subject doon sa BAR Form 1709. No? So, hindi lang basta-basta ha. Lahat ng companies ngayon dapat may disclosures na sila about related parties and disclosures on the reason why hindi sila dapat mag-file ng BAR Form 1709. No? Okay, going back to Corbus India. Anong sabi po ng Corbus India? Aside from the assessment ng yung una kanina, ano yung naunang assessment about the interest na receivables, no? So mayroon pang masibag talaga yung transfer pricing officer, no? Kasi yung mga na-classmate kong transfer pricing officers ng India, sabi niya, pagdating daw niya sa office niya, the people are lining up already and he was able to decide 18 transfer pricing cases a day. No? Just imagine. Ano yung dinidebatihan lang? Yung gross profit or yung net margin o yung depende kasi may mga comparable sila. No? And I read also yung previous case natin sa transfer pricing. Ano yung previous case natin? Yung ADECO and yung next pa sa ADECO, no? Ano yung sabi ng judge na nag-decide doon sa case? Ang sabi niya, the court should not rely only on the transfer pricing documentation, transfer pricing analysis report prepared by the taxpayer. The court should prepare its own transfer pricing report. So, yan ang suggestion po ng judge na kasama siya doon sa team na nag-decide ng case. No? So, posible, pag inadapt yan ng Pilipinas, anong gagawin? Gagawa din ng sariling transfer pricing analysis report ang BAR during the transfer pricing audit. No? So, kung ano halimbawa, kasi yun man na nangyayari on the disputed cases ng GlaxoSmithKline sa Canada, sa ibang bansa. Sa Amerika, anong ginagawa nila? Gumawa ng transfer pricing analysis report yung taxpayer, gumawa din ang tax authority ng sarili niyang transfer pricing analysis report at ibabangga mo ngayon. Sasabihin mo na hindi tama yung ginawang transfer pricing analysis ng isa, no? At ito yung tama. Okay. Another findings of the transfer pricing officer in the case of Corbus India is that the assessing officer further found that the assessee, sino yung assessee? Yung Corbus India, no? Had claimed dividend income of 2,44,356, no? Ni-research ko pa to yung pera ng India kasi hindi mo maintindihan yung kanilang mga kama-kama, no? Parang hindi siya 1,000, million, no? So, ang lakh is 10,000, no? Yung crore, mas mataas yun sa lakh. Tapos yung lakh, saka 10 lakh, at saka crore, no? So, yun yung mga pataas sa atin siguro, yung million, billions, sa kanila, iba, no? Okay. Ano nangyari dito? The assessee claimed dividend income of 2,44,356. And while invoking the provision of Section 14A, read with Rules 38D of the rules, this allowed a sum of 26,233. No? So the assessing officer therefore made an addition of 69,73,350 on account of arm's length adjustment in respect of outstanding receivables and a sum of 26,223 by invoking Section 14A and with Rule 8D of the rules, no? So, dalawa yung kanyang assessment. Yun yung interest at saka yung dividend, no? So, yun yung findings ng transfer pricing officer. So, anong ginawa nung tax authority? Challenging the same, no? So, the assessee preferred appeal before the CIT, no, yung Commissioner on Income Tax. After considering the submission based on behalf of the assessee, observe that ITAS segment relates to e-sourcing for procurement of goods, and there was delay varying from 271 to 55 days for 10 invoices and in software development segment. So, yung case nila is meron pa lang talagang mga delays, no? Sa e-sourcing procurement at saka sa mga goods, no? Ilan yung days? 271 to 55 days for 10 invoices involving in software development segment, no? The delay varied from 237 to 50 days for 27 invoices, and therefore held that such a transaction was liable for arm's length adjustment, no? However, directed the assessing officer to charge interest. So sabi ng court, ano yung dapat mo i-charge? Yung LIBOR, no? Yung London Interbank Offered Rate plus the 1.5% instead of interest, no? At 17.77%, or the delayed payment from associated entities in both ITs and software development segment, no? So anong ginawa ng korte doon sa 17.77%? Ginawa niya yung LIBOR, yung London Interbank Offered Rate plus 1.5%, no? Okay. CIT further observed that the assessee had failed to explain why the provisions of sections 14A read with Rule 8D should not be applicable to the case, and held that the limited assessing officer correctly determined the disallowance under section 14A read with Rule 8D, no? So yun yung findings ng court, no? Agreed by both the findings of the Commissioner of Income Tax, assessee preferred this appeal before us, challenging the arm's length adjustment in respect of outstanding receivables and also the disallowance under section 14A read with Rule 8D of the rules, no? So nag-appeal pa siya ulit, no? It is the argument of the AR that the receivable are not independent transactions separate from the transaction of sale, and receivables are merely an offshoot of commercial transactions and cannot be viewed on stand-alone basis. So, ang ganda ng argument ng taxpayer. Hindi raw pwede na mag-charge ka ng interest doon sa accounts receivable mo, kasi yung accounts receivable, saan yan nanggaling? Galing yan doon sa business transactions mo, nagbenta ka ng services mo. At ang sabi pa niya, hindi yun pwede lagyan ng interest kasi ang business mo is services, hindi financing, no? Hindi interest ang ina-after mo sa iyong business transactions, ha? Okay. That the receivable is an integral part of the return on the underlying commercial transaction. Ang sabi niya, ang receivable normal lang yan, no? Kasi nagbibenta ka, nagpapautang ka, so normal lang yan na hindi nakakapag-meet ng obligation on time, no? So there is no increased reason as to why and how the outstanding receivable should be treated as loans. Kaya nga wala daw siyang makita na magandang reasons na yung receivables mo i-treat mo as loan, no? Kasi ano ba yung nag-earn ng interest? It's the loan, no? So bakit ang receivables mo na nangyari because nagbebenta ka ng services, ngayon isubject mo sa interest na wala namang pinag-usapan na interest, no? Kasi hindi naman siya financial loans or activities ng nagpapautang, no? Okay. He further submitted that the receivables, sino yung ito? Ito yung taxpayer, ito yung si Corbus India, no? He further submitted that the receivables are not sham transactions, no? Pag sinabi mong sham transactions, gawa-gawa lang or artificial lang o fake, no? So sabi niya hindi to fake na transactions, but genuinely sourced from the business operations as the amounts overdue from the customers and should be construed as such, and therefore, the interest charged on such transaction is not defined, and contrary to the legislative intent and judicial view expressed in a number of decisions, like the decision of Honorable Delhi High Court in the case of CIT versus BC Management Services Private Limited. No? So, nagbigay sila ng reason kung bakit hindi dapat na lagyan ng interest yung receivables. No? Okay. Next contention of the assessee is that the operating profit margin from services rendered to associated enterprises, ito na yung operating profit margin, no? Pag sabi natin na operating profit, ito yung sales less cost of sales less operating expenses equals operating profit, no? Okay. Next contention of the assessee is that the operating profit margin from services rendered to associated enterprises is 45.88%, no? So yun yung contention na ang taxpayer ng Corbus India, na yung gross profit margin niya is very high, 45.88%. So sabi niya, dapat arm's length na yung transactions niya. And therefore, the working capital adjustment, if appropriately taken into account, the return that was earned by the assessee would adequately compensate it for outstanding receivables, and since the pricing or profitability of the assessee is more than the working capital adjusted, the arm's length adjustment on the outstanding receivables is not warranted. So, hindi dapat nag-adjust. O hindi dapat, sabi ng korte, hindi dapat magdagdag ng interest income yung transfer pricing officer. No? Kasi unang-una, ang negosyo ng taxpayer is IT, hindi naman pagpapautang, no? Kaya para hanapan mo siya ng interest, it's not proper, no? Okay. So, accounts receivable, while drawing our attention to the statement on the company's credit policy submitted that the assessee follows uniform policy of not charging any interest on outstanding receivables, both we are now talking about the case, ha? Anong ginawa, no? Shout out tayo, Franz Manlangit, no? Magandang gabi, madam, no? So, thank you for watching, Franz, no? Franz Manlangit, no? Our discussion is about the Corbus India versus the Delhi Commissioner of Income Tax, no? So, at ang mga issue dito is about the imposition ng interest doon sa accounts receivable, no? At saka yung sa declaration ng dividend. Okay? So, comparison of the case of associated enterprise and non-associated enterprise, di ba yun yung comparability, no, analysis, clearly suggests that according to such credit policy, no adjustment is warranted on the outstanding receivable. So, ano sabi nung Corbus India? Sa usual na transaction ng related parties at yung independent parties, ibig sabihin hindi related parties, hindi naglalagay ng interest doon sa accounts receivable na pinautang mo, because that is your business. Hindi ka naman nagpapautang, no, na pera ang pinapautang mo dyan, yung serbisyo mo. So, hindi yan nag-earn ng interest. The next line of arguments of accounts receivable is that the assessee is a debt-free company, no? So, sabi ng taxpayer, debt-free company kami kasi hindi naman kami nagpapautang, as it has neither received any interest from any creditors nor paid interest to any debtor, as is reflected in the profit and loss account, showing a surplus of 9.6 crores. No, ang laki ng kanilang surplus, with a meager interest charge of 30,278, and therefore, in view of the decision of the Honorable Delhi Court in the case of PCIT versus BC Management Services Private Limited, and number of decisions of coordinate benches of Delhi Tribunal. Ang dami daw mga decision na yung tribunal ng Delhi. The delayed payment made by associated enterprise entities cannot be treated as part of the assessor's income. So, ibig sabihin na delay lang bayad yung mga, kasi ito si Corbus India, nagsiservisyo siya doon sa mga associated entities, no, mga related parties din yung siniservisyo niya, nagpo-provide siya ng IT, no, services. Ngayon, may mga utang ito kasi nagbibill siya na minsan hindi nababayaran on time. Sometimes umaabot ng mga 260 days, no? So, ang ginawa ng transfer pricing officer, siningil niya, nilagyan niya ng interest income. So, yun ang dinidispute ngayon ng Corbus India, no? So, in respect of the disallowance, the case of the assessee has been that the investment in mutual funds was made in earlier years and by way of the policy of automatic reinvestment of dividend without any efforts of the assessee. Such investment accrue further dividends and therefore there is neither any direct expenses nor interest expense nor any administrative expense involved in earning of dividend, no? So he further submitted that a similar question had arises in immediately preceding year 2008-2009 under identical circumstances and the CIT or the Commissioner of Income Tax considering the submission of the assessee deleted the addition, no? So sabi niya mayroon ng prior na nag-decide na rin yung commissioner na dinilit or hindi na nilagyan ng interest income yung accounts receivable, no? Per contra, there places heavy reliance on the orders of the authorities below and draw our attention to the relevant observations of the authorities in such orders, no? So, ano sabi ng court? We have gone through the records in the light of submissions. So, kasi, di ba, pagka sa korte ka, lahat ng records, evidence, no, ay tinitingnan niya ng korte at doon sila magre-rely. Kaya nga, sa korte, ang labanan dyan, pagandahan ang dokumento ng presentation of evidence. At may isa pa ako natutuhan dito sa mga cases. Kasi masasabi mo talaga na ang mga transfer pricing cases, ibang klase siya ng case, no? Magmula pa lang doon sa trial or sa presentation pa lang ng evidence, iba na, mas detalyado na, no? So, ano pa yung isang natutunan ko dito sa transfer pricing cases? Ito yung lumaban yung yung sa Norwegian, no? Yung Shell, Norske Shell, na sa district court talo siya, pagdating sa appeal talo na naman, no? Pero the Norske Shell hindi siya nag-give up, no? So dinala pa rin yung case niya sa Supreme Court. No, pagdating sa Supreme Court, anong ginawa niya? Ang petition niya doon or yung request niya sa court is to review all relevant na evidence at yung application ng law, no? So lahat ng ebidensya at saka application ng law pina-review niya sa Supreme Court. And then lahat ng findings, lahat ng ginawa ng tax authority, isa-isa na sinagot nila pagdating na sa Supreme Court. So anong nangyari doon sa case na yun? Panalo yung Shell pagdating na sa Supreme Court, no? Ano yung case na yun? Yun naman yung allocation ng research and development, no? Ano yun? Ang sabi ng court, bakit ikarga mo lahat ng research and development sa Norske Shell dito sa Norway when in fact lahat ng shell all over the world na kinabang doon sa research and development. So ano dapat? Dapat bawasan yung research and development na kinlaim ng Norske Shell sa Norway para tataas yung income niya, no? Pero kasi yung request ng Norske Shell to review the relevant documents or evidence and the application of law, may mga batas silang pinakita na batas din ng Norway na tama yung ginawa nila na allocation, no? Kaya nga sabi ko sa atin, pagka proper yung documentation natin, hindi tayo matatakot kahit na yung case makakarating sa court. Why? Basta lahat, in the case of other case yun, no? Na lahat yung Agra City, no? Ano naman yon? Lahat ng sales niya, lahat ng expenses niya, lahat ng mga dokumento niya, properly recorded, properly accounted for. So, lahat ng allegations ng Canada, hindi na nalo pagdating na sa court, no? Kaya nga, documentation is very important. Kaya nga tayo nagtuturo din ng bookkeeping. Why? Kasi ano sabi natin? Bookkeeping is the heart of tax compliance, no? Kasi kahit ano-ano pa na sasabihin mo na compliant ka, pero wala ka namang dokumento, wala ka namang records na ipapakita. Wala pa rin, no? Kahit anong galing pa ng tax consultant mo, kung ang puhunan niya laway lang, pagdating sa korte, hindi uubra, no? Bakit? Kasi anong tinitingnan ng korte? Dokumento. Okay. So, what happened pa on this case? No, sabi ng court, we have gone through the records, no? So, in the light of submission made on either side, no? There is no denial of the fact that the operating profit margin earned by the ACSC from the services rendered to associated entity is 45.88%. Ito yung gross profit niya. Ito yung operating margin niya, hindi gross profit. So ano yan? 45.88, mataas. Ito nga ngayon ang problema ko, no? Sa transfer pricing analysis, ang baba. Ang baba. Paano mo to masabi na arm's length, no? So, and the same is significantly higher than the working capital adjusted results for comparables at 22.07%. No, so, mataas. Working capital adjustment is an adjustment for the opportunity cost of capital for investment made in working capital, which require capital and operating assets, and an uncontrolled entity is expected to earn a market rate of return on that required capital independent of the services that it provides. Kasi pinautang mo eh. So, ibig sabihin na pinautang mo, gumamit ka ng capital instead na, di ba, current assets less current liabilities is working capital. Eh, yung current assets mo, nandoon yung accounts receivable mo, nandoon natulog yung working capital mo. So, dapat daw, mayroon kang kita doon. So, anong pinakita naman ng Corbus India? Mataas pa rin yung working capital adjustment niya. No, in spite of the fact na nagpapautang siya ng more than 45 days, no? So, working capital adjustment is an adjustment for the opportunity cost of capital for investment made in working capital, which require capital and operating assets as an uncontrolled entity is expected to earn a market rate of return on that required capital independent of the services that it provides. The amount of capital required to support the services is dependent upon the level of inventory, debtors and creditors measured at a particular percentage of the total cost, and had impact on the profits from investing at different levels of working capital due to the differences in the cash collection cycle. No? So, anong cash collection cycle? Yung accounts receivable, which imply differences in credits granted to the customers, which activity is similar to an additional service for which the markets would pay. No? And remember na in the case of this Corbus India, sino yung mga customer niya dito? Mga related parties din. No? So, in Custom Healthcare Private Limited versus Asset, the coordinate branch of tribunal held. Ito yung mga citation nila ng ibang decision ng court, no? So, we have heard rival submission and perused the materials on record. An uncontrolled entity will expect to earn a market rate of return on its working capital investment independent of the functions it perform or products it provides. So iba yung functions mo, iba yung return ng working capital mo. No? However, the amount of capital required to support these functions varies greatly because the level of inventories, debtors and creditors varies. No? So, siyempre, kaya nga ang transfer pricing case is, every case is unique and depends on the facts and circumstances of the case. No? High levels of working capital create cost either in the form of incurred interest or in the form of opportunity costs. Working capital yield a return resulting from a higher sales price or lower cost of goods sold, which would have a positive impact on the operational result, no? So higher salaries or higher sales prices acts as a return for the longer credit period granted to customers, no? So similarly, in return for longer credit period granted, a firm should be willing to pay higher purchase price, which adds to the cost of goods sold. Therefore, high-level accounts receivable and inventory to overstate the operating results, while high levels of accounts payable tend to understate them, thereby necessitating appropriate adjustment, no? So the appropriate adjustment needs to be considered to bring parity in the working capital investment of the assessee and the comparables rather than looking at the receivable independently, no? So pag nagkaroon ka kasi ng working capital adjustment, hindi lang yun yung titingnan mo yung accounts receivable, lahat na, no? Such working capital adjustment takes into account the excuse me, the impact of outstanding receivables on the profitability, no? Ano ba? Because of the receivables mo, natulog yung capital mo doon, so may impact yun sa profitability, no? Excuse lang po, sandali kasi break ng 3 minutes. Okay, so let's go back to our discussion on the case of Corbus, India, no, versus the Delhi Commissioner of Income Tax. Okay, so nasaan na tayo? sa case ng Corbus India Private Limited versus the Delhi Commissioner of Income Tax. Ano yung disallow dito? Hindi siya disallow, but upward adjustment on the receivables over 45 days. At anong ginawa ng transfer pricing officer dito? Nag-impose siya ng 17.7% na interest, no? And then meron pa siyang isang findings about the dividend, no? Okay. So, the order of the tribunal was affirmed by Honorable Jurisdictional High Court in ITA number 765/2016, no? Revenue Appeal order. And the Honorable High Court unequivocally held that working capital adjustment takes into account the impact of outstanding receivables on the profitability. Yun ang contention naman ng Delhi Commissioner of Income Tax, no? Na ang accounts receivable talaga may impact siya sa profitability, no? It is also not in dispute that the assessee is a debt-free company, as is reflected in the profit of loss account, wherein the interest charges are only 30,278, no? Kasi hindi naman siya talaga nagpapautang, no? So it is therefore nagpapautang ng pera, pero nagpapautang siya ng services, no? It is therefore clear that the assessee does not have any interest where borrowed funds were utilized for extending any kind of loan to its associated entities, no? So that the transfer pricing adjustment could be made. So in the case of BC Management Services Private Limited, Honorable Jurisdictional High Court held that notional income on account of delayed payment cannot be treated as part of income and be made subject matter of adjustment. No? Yun na yung sinasabi. Hindi pwede na yung accounts receivable mo, lagyan mo ng interest, no? In Indo-American Jewelry Limited, the Mumbai Tribunal held a close reading of Section 92B transpires that the transactions of sale and lending money have been distinctly set out. Transaction of sale results into profit, and that of lending money gives interest income. Siyempre, nagpapautang ka ng pera, may cost of money yan. Thus, it is evident that interest income is associated only with the lending or borrowing of money and not with sale, no? So, yun yung contention naman na ang interest income is associated with lending. Kasama yan pag nagpautang ka ng pera. Hindi yung nagpapautang ka ng serbisyo, no? Okay. So, if the international transaction is that of sale, the arm's length price is determined qua the sale price, no? So, of course, while determining the arm's length price in a sale transaction, all the relevant aspects, including the credit period allowed, are taken into view, no? So, on the other hand, if the international transaction is that of lending or borrowing money, the arm's length price is gauged qua the interest. Oh, kasi nagpapautang ka ng pera. So, asan magagaling yung income mo? From the interest, no? So when the international transaction is that of sale, the interest aspect is embedded in it, no? So there can be no separate international transaction of interest in the international transaction of sale. Early or late realization of sale proceeds is only incidental to the transaction of sale, no? Kasi yung madelay yung collection mo, hindi naman ibig sabihin na kailangan may interest income ka na kaagad. Why? Because sometimes delayed yung collection mo pero wala talaga interest income na kinokolekta, no? But not separate transaction in itself. If the arm's length price in respect of an international transaction of sale is determined, then there can be no question of treating the non-receipt of interest in that sale transaction as a separate international transaction, warranting any further adjustment. One may also contend that the expression any other transaction having a bearing on the profits, income, losses as employed in Section 92B, defining international transaction would encompass such interest from sale as the non-receipt of due interest would have the effect on profits on income. This contention also does not merit acceptance because when sale and lending money have been specifically included in definition of international transaction under Section 92B, then the expression any other transaction used in the later part of this provision will exclude all the items separately covered. No? So in this view of the matter, it becomes manifest that there can be no separate international transaction of interest income which is part of the transaction of sale. No? So anong sabi? Walang interest income yung transaction ng sale. Once arm's length principle is determined in respect of the sale transactions, it would be deemed to be covering all the elements and consequences of the transaction of sale. Having determined arm's length price in a sale transaction, it cannot be accepted that separate adjustment dehors such determination is required in respect of interest. Similar view is taken in Nimbus Communication and ITA number 6597, MAM 2009, and Bharti Airtel Limited versus ASIT. It is therefore clear that recharacterization of the outstanding receivables as loan is impermissible unless the transactions are found to be substantially at variance with the stated form. No? Kaya nung sabi nila, i-recharacterize mo, ibig sabihin, i-reclassify mo or ibahin mo yung characterization ng receivables. Nilagyan mo siya ng interest. No? So, hindi siya acceptable. Lastly, there is no denial of the fact that in the assessment year 2012 to 2013, this question of adjustment on account of receivables was dealt by the CIT and by referring to the decision of Honorable Jurisdictional High Court in the case of Custom Healthcare Private Limited Sopra, deleted the entire adjustment suggested by TPO, no, Transfer Pricing Officer ng India, on account of interest on outstanding receivables. We agree with the submission of the that because the CIT did not have the benefit of decision of Honorable Jurisdictional High Court in the case of Custom Healthcare Private Limited, the issue was held otherwise for the assessment year 2009 to 2010. So, viewing from any angle, we are of the considered opinion that the addition made on account of arm's length price adjustment in respect of outstanding receivables cannot be sustained. No? So, yung pag-impose ng receivables o ng interest on receivables cannot be sustained. No? Hindi na sustain ng court. And we therefore, while allowing grounds numbers 1 to 3, direct the assessing officer to delete the addition. So, yun yung upward adjustment on income tax. No? So, now turning to ground number 6 in respect of this allowance of expenditure under Section 14A, on a reading of the order dated July 17, 2019, no, in ITA, for assessment year 2011-2012 in assessor's own case, we find that this issue stands covered and in the absence of any reason to show why the view taken by the tribunal in assessor's own case of identical facts and circumstances should not be followed. Parang res judicata, no? Nagkaroon na ng decision, so you have to follow. We find that mechanical application of Rule 8D is not tenable and the addition made on this account has to be deleted. No? So, we ordered to so. So, sinong talo dito? The tax authority. Okay, so, order pronounced in the open court on March 5, 2020. No? Okay. So, yun po yung case ng yan po yung case ng Corbus India versus the Delhi Commissioner of Income Tax, no? Okay. So, wala na tayong mga shout out, no? Okay. So, balikan po natin yung ating transfer pricing issues, no, involving intangibles. So, ang sabi ko nga sa inyo, that is very, very important, no? Since yung filing season natin ngayon, so reminder ko lang din sa inyo na please don't forget na yung ating what we call this, income tax return, yung mga financial statements na ginawa natin should bear the intangibles disclosures, no? Nag-report tayo ng mga disclosures doon. Okay? So, in the recognition of intangibles, ano yung mga posible natin na magiging guide, no? So, yung guide natin can be the OECD Transfer Pricing Guidelines or itong guide natin na United Nations Transfer Pricing Manual, no? So, balikan natin yung intangibles kasi we still have time, no? Okay. Okay. So, pagka may mga dispute na about intangibles, anong gagawin natin? Since we are talking about transfer pricing, ano ang i-apply pa rin natin dito? We apply pa rin the arm's length principle. And when we say arm's length principle, anong gagawin natin? We must have a comparable. So, maghanap tayo ng comparable na independent parties na merong same na intangibles. And ano yung ginawa ng independent parties on that intangibles, no? Okay. Kaya ang transfer pricing, kahit anong issue pa, do not go away with the arm's length principle. At ano yung transfer pricing principle? Compare, no? Magkaroon ka kaagad ng comparables na independent party. Kasi pag wala, then hindi mo na-apply yung arm's length principle. No? Okay, so ang daming mga scenarios dito. Itong isa na maganda siya na i-discuss, no? Okay. Ito yung development and enhancement of marketing intangibles. Usually kasi, ang mga taxpayer talaga are incurring so much expenses sa marketing. Bakit? Bakit? Ano ang pinaka-importante or yung pinaka-must pagka ikaw ay isang manufacturing companies or nasa sales ka? Siyempre yung marketing. Kasi otherwise, pag hindi ka nang ma-market, kaya tingnan nyo ang mga halos sa isang company, ang mga kumikita yung nasa marketing, no? Meron akong isang accountant na kilala pero wala na siya, na mayapan na nung namatay na. Anong sabi niya noon? Nung nag-umpisa pa yun lang yung company, accountant siya. As the company grow, nakikita niya na siya accountant pa rin. Pero yung mga nasa marketing, mayayaman na, no? Nakasabay niya nagtatrabaho. Bakit? Kasi ang dami nilang incentives yung nasa marketing. Halimbawa, may sales commission sila, no? So, may mga sasakyan sila. And then, siya yung accountant na sa opisina lang, same pa rin siya, no? So, anong ginawa niya? Lumipat siya sa marketing, no? So, why? Kasi yung marketing is very important at nandyan yung pera ng company. Kasi pag mahina yung marketing mo, mahina ang pasok ng pera mo, no? Kaya nga sabi ko, sa mga strategies natin sa buhay, siguro ang dagdagan natin yung marketing ng products natin. Paano tayo mag-market, no? Kasi actually, may akong isang pending na client ngayon. He's really very, very good in marketing, no? Parang bang yung utak niya, pagka automatic na lang yun na nagkakaroon siya ng mga marketing scheme. Pasok siya sa banking industry, pasok siya sa real estate industry, pasok siya sa resale industry. Andiyan na parang at the click, no? At the snap of your hand. Andiyan na siya agad, meron na siya marketing strategies. Sabi ko, gifted din itong tao na to, no? Parang ang bilis-bilis lang niya mag-isip. Ang dami niyang kaagad nagkakaroon siya ng mga ideas. Ang dami niyang pera. But, of course, you're not perfect. Hindi lahat ng bagay mapapasa iyo, no? Ano naman yung kulang sa kanya? Yung strategies on how to maintain naman doon sa pera niya, no? Doon naman siya ng parang may loophole, no? Pero mayaman pa rin siya kasi na ano siya, na fraud, na parang na ano yung pera niya, naloko siya. Pero marami pa rin siya natirang pera, no? Ganun talaga ang buhay, no? So, in the transfer pricing issues, no, we have the development and enhancement of marketing intangibles, no? So, ano itong mga enhancement ng marketing intangibles, no? So, the analysis of the issue sa mga marketing intangibles tayo, the obligation and rights implied by the legal registrations and agreements between the parties. So, ano yung mga magiging issues ng marketing intangibles? Ano ba yung nagiging agreement ng parties on the marketing intangibles, no? Especially on the legal registration and agreements. Ano yung magiging issue dyan sa marketing intangibles on the agreements of parties? Paano ba binabayaran ng related parties ang other related parties or other related entities on the use of the marketing intangibles? Ano ba yung marketing intangibles? Ito yung mga logo, brand, trademarks, no? Bakit tinatawag sila na marketing intangibles? Because nai-enhance nila yung napapadali nila or napapabilis, napapa-identify nila yung products in the market. Mabilis siya na ma-identify ng customer na bibili doon sa product mo. Kasi bakit? May logo ka, may trademark, may brand, no? So, ang tawag dyan, marketing intangibles. At yun yung pabilis para ma-recognize ang product mo by the customer at bibilhin nila, no? So, ano yung agreement, no, between parties? Kagaya nung case ng Coca-Cola. How much yung bayad niya doon sa marketing intangibles owned by Coca-Cola? Diba, ang nangyari doon is yung may-ari ng intangibles na Coca-Cola, mas maliit lang yung income niya compared doon sa Puerto Rico na related parties niya na Coca-Cola din, na ang function is distribution lang, no? So, anong ginawa ng IRS doon, ng Internal Revenue Service ng Amerika? In-adjust yung income ng Puerto Rico na 285% at dinala sa US as income ng Coca-Cola US and taxed accordingly, no? So, instead na doon mo bayaran sa Puerto Rico, dito ka magbayad sa US kasi income ito ng Coca-Cola US, no? Bakit dinala mo doon sa Puerto Rico? At bakit mo binayaran yung Puerto Rico? Distributor lang siya, hindi naman siya may-ari ng intangibles, no? So, very important po ang determination of the ownership of the intangibles. Once na alam mo na kung sino yung owner ng intangibles, then since siya yung owner, dapat siya yung properly compensated. Hindi yung distributor lang, mas malaki pa yung kita kaysa sa kanya, no? So, yun yung decided case ng Coca-Cola. Okay. Another is the functions performed, the assets used, and the risk assumed by the parties. Ano yung sabi natin dito sa functions, no? So, pagka nag-iba na yung functions mo, mag-iiba na yung remuneration mo. Halimbawa naman, yung assets used mo, malaki. Kaya nga, dito sa case ng Corbus, India, ano naman ang ginawa niya dito? Since malaki yung assets niya na receivables, nilagyan ng transfer pricing officer ng upward adjustment. Nilagyan niya ng interest income yung receivables, no? Kung sa common sense ka lang, parang tama din naman, no? Kasi pinautang mo at saka ang tagal-tagal. So, dapat may interest. But, in this case, yung Corbus India was able to prove na wala talaga silang interest na ini-impose. So, hindi sila dapat na i-assess or magbayad ng income tax because there is really no interest collected on that receivables, no? Okay. So, ano pa yung isa na consideration, the risk assumed by the parties, no? Halimbawa, ano ba yung usapan natin sa risk or ano yung tinuturo natin about risk? The company was the most risk or assume the risk must be properly remunerated or compensated. So, halimbawa, yung risk na masira yung product, halimbawa, ikaw yung magbabayad ng warranties. So, dapat compensated ka dun sa warranties. Hindi yung halimbawa, manufacturer is hindi siya ang magbabayad ng risk on defective goods, nasa distributor. So, sino dapat ang may malaking bayad? Siyempre yung distributor because siya yung nag-assume ng risk ng mga defective goods. No? So, risk is a very important issue in transfer pricing. So, kasama na dyan sa intangibles. And then, the intangible value anticipated to be created through the marketer or distributor activities. No? So, ano yung intangible value? No? Ano ba yung intangible value? Ito yung mga sinasabi natin na hard to value na mga bagay kasi paano mo i-monetize at ang intangibles nga is non-monetary, no? Okay. So, intangible value anticipated to be created through the marketer or distributor's activities, no? And the number 4, the compensation provided for the functions performed by the marketer, distributor, taking account of the assets used and the risk assumed. No? So, these are very important transfer pricing issues that kailangan i-consider. No? So, where a distributor acts merely as an agent, bawa yung distributor daw is agent lang, being reimbursed for its promotional expenditures and being directed and controlled in its activities by the owner of the trademarks and other marketing intangibles. In that case, the distributor ordinarily would be entitled to compensation appropriate to its agency activities alone. So, kagaya yung sa Puerto Rico, no? Ano ba ang function ng company doon ng Coca-Cola? Distributor, no? So, hindi siya yung owner ng intangibles. So, ano dapat? Compensated siya sa functions niya as distributor. Hindi yung 285% ang binayan mo sa kanya for that very simple functions. No? Sino yung may complicated na functions? Of course, the Coca-Cola in US kasi siya na yung may-ari ng lahat ng intangibles. Sa kanya pa nang gagaling yung mga secret formula. Lahat-lahat na about Coca-Cola nandun sa kanya. No? Okay. So, the distributor ordinarily would be entitled to compensation appropriate to its agency's activities alone. It does not assume that the risk associated with the further development of the trademark and other marketing intangibles and would therefore not be entitled to additional remuneration in that regard. Siyempre, kung ano yung talagang functions mo, kung ano talaga yung ginawa mo, dapat properly remunerated ka. No? Okay. Next na issue natin is the research development and process improvement arrangements. Bakit? Kasi ito na yung mga agreement between related parties. Ito gumagawa ako ng transfer pricing analysis and I really require na kasama yung agreement sa documentations. No? Yung ibang client ayaw magbigay kasi confidential daw. Sabi ko, the transfer pricing analysis study is also confidential. No? Hindi mo yan pwede na, halimbawa ikaw yung transfer pricing analyst, hindi pwede na yung mga documents na binigay sa iyo ng kliyente mo, bigay mo sa iba, no way, pwede kang ma-demanda dyan, no? Once na transfer pricing analyst ka, that documents are for your eyes only, no? Hindi mo yan pwede na ipamigay sa iba or gamitin sa iba, no? So, research, development, and process improvement arrangements. No? Sino yung may arrangement dito? The associated entities or the related parties. No? Okay, so the principle set out in the foregoing paragraph applies on the situation on the performance of research and development functions, no? By the member of the M&E group. In fact, itong research and development, ito yung issue ng Norske Shell, no? Yung research and development na charge nila lahat dun sa Norwegian company na Shell, no? Okay. Alam niyo maganda dito, meron siyang tinatawag na Blue Sky Research, no? Is undertaken. Ano itong Blue Sky Research? Ito yung parang sa salitang Tagalog is suntok sa buwan na research. Basta research lang para may magawa lang at makaklaim ng expenses. Parang loan din ng mga companies na loan lang ng loan kahit na sa totoong buhay hindi naman kailangan yung loan para makapag-claim lang ng interest expense. Ganon din dito sa research and development. Since in other countries, very crucial sa kanila at very material sa kanila yung research and development. Why? Because research and development determines the life of their business. No? Kasi ang sabi nila, innovate or die. And you can only innovate through research and development. Pag hindi ka nag-research, paano mo innovate? How can you innovate or improve your product kung wala kang research and development? That's why research and development is very important for those companies. No? Ang problema lang, nagkaroon sila ng tinatawag na blue sky research, no? Is undertaken. Uses its own intangibles or is controlled and managed by other party. Ano yung blue sky research? Suntok sa buwan. Hindi alam kung ano yung goal, basta makagastos lang, basta magawa lang, and then makaklaim lang as an expense. No? That is what we call as blue sky research. Kaya red light ka agad ang mga transfer pricing officer when it comes to research and development. Kasi pag sinabi mo na blue sky research yan, i-disallow yan ng examiner. No? Okay. Okay, so continue lang tayo, no, sa transfer pricing issues natin. At napakaganda na discussion yung blue sky research, no? Okay. Suntok sa buwan na research. Okay. So, compensation based on a reimbursement of cost plus a modest markup will not reflect the anticipated value of or the arm's length price for the contributions of the research team in all cases. No? So, M&A Group provides manufacturing services that may lead to process or product improvement on behalf of an associated enterprise that will assume legal ownership of such process or product improvements. No? Okay. So, payment for the use of the company name. No? So, ito, ang dami nito, no? Mga group of companies. No? Ito yung mga malalaking mall dito sa Pilipinas. No? Bawat isa niyan is owned by a different company. Pero bawat ilang mga mall na yan, isa lang yung business name. No? So, ano yung dapat gawin dyan? Payments for use of the company name. So, bakit iba ka na may-ari, ginagamit mo yung ganyan na pangalan? That's why nagbabayad ka ng royalties, no? Kasi royalties are the payment for the use of intangibles. No? Royalties yung tawag dyan. So, payment for the use of the company name, papaano? Papaano ka magbayad sa ginagamit mo yung company name? And why are you using the company name? Kasi yung company name, lalo na kung sikat na, di ka na mahirapan market ng kanyang product. No? That's why naka-attach ka dun sa mga sikat. Okay. No payment should be recognized for transfer pricing purposes for simple recognition of group membership or the use of the group name merely to reflect the fact of group membership. No? So, yan lang. Kung group membership lang, hindi mo papakinabangan. So, wala dapat bayad. Where one member of the group is the owner of a trademark or other intangibles, that's why anong ginagawa ng karamihang companies ngayon? They create an IP hub. Ano yung IP hub? Intellectual property hub. Meaning, ito yung isang company that owns all the intangible. And then, anong gagawin nila? Pa-register nila on a low tax jurisdiction. So that pagbayad mo doon ng royalties, maliit lang yung babayaran na tax. No? That is the work of the intelligent people na naisip nila yan. No? And where the use of the name provides a financial benefit to members of the group other than the member of legally owning such intangible, it is reasonable to conclude that a payment for use would have been made in arm's length transaction. So, since you are using the business name, no? So, ano ang ina-assume for transfer pricing purposes? That the payment for the use of that name is arm's length. So, ano ibig sabihin ng arm's length? Yan din yung payment ng parties who are not members of the group or independent parties. No? Such payment may be appropriate where a group member owns goodwill in respect of the business represented by an unregistered trademark. Use of that trademark by another party would constitute misrepresentation. No? So, misrepresentation yan pagka ginamit mo na hindi naman ikaw yung owner. And the use of the trademark provides a clear financial benefit to a group member. No? So, yung use ng trademark provide financial benefit. Bakit? Tumataas yung sales nila to a group member other than that owning the goodwill and unregistered trademark. No? Okay. When an existing successful business is acquired by another successful business and the acquired business begins to use a name, trademark, or other branding indicative of the acquiring business, there should be no automatic assumption that a payment should be made in respect of such use. No? Halimbawa, kilala na yung isang business, in-acquire naman siya nung isang business na kilala din, tapos hindi na ginamit yung kanyang pangalan. So there's no use or no value sa doon sa kilala na siya kasi hindi naman din siya ginamit, no? Okay. Amount of any payment should be informed by the level of that anticipated benefits. Doon sa use ng company name, no? Okay. Transaction involving the use or transfer of intangibles, ito yung maraming issues, no? Kasi meron ka ng intangibles, tapos tinransfer mo, and then binalyo mo na napakaliit kasi you avoid the payment of taxes. So, anong mangyayari? I-revalue ka. Ano yung karamihan? Upward adjustment. Dadagdagan yung income mo, no? So, there are generally two types of transactions where identification and examination of intangibles will be relevant for transfer pricing purposes. Number one, transactions involving transfer of intangibles or rights in intangibles. No? So, ang dami niyan. Especially na mag-restructure o bago ng structure yung companies, and then magko-close sila ng isang company, ililipat nila yung mga intangibles sa isang company, then the issue and the valuation of those intangibles or rights over the intangibles will be crucial, no? Bakit? Kasi i-determine mo na ngayon how much is the intangible, is the value of the intangible. Bakit? Kasi may bayaran na dito eh, may transactions na, may transfer na that will happen, no? And then another is the transactions involving the use of intangibles in connection with the sale of goods or the provision of services, no? So may intangibles involved sa sale of goods and services, no? Okay. Transfer of intangibles or rights in intangibles, no? Yung transactions involving the transfer of intangibles or rights in intangibles is essential to identify with the specificity of the nature of the intangibles and rights in intangibles, no? So, functional analysis should identify the nature of the transferred rights in intangibles with specificity. Ang issue sa DHL, sa Amazon, no? Ano-ano ba yung intangibles na kasama pag tinransfer mo yung business? Kasi ang sabi ng iba, ito lang dapat. Sabi naman ng iba, hindi, dapat kasama ito. So, ano dapat ang involved when ang issue is transfer of intangibles, no? Okay. Ano yung sabi dito? The functional analysis should identify the nature of the transferred rights in intangibles with specificity. Very specific. Sabi ng taxpayer, ito lang yung kasama na transfer ko. Sinabi naman ng tax authority, kasama lahat, pati customers list, pati all the residual account relating to intangibles, kasama lahat na transfer. And even the expected income, no? Kasama pa rin. So, ano dapat? I-value mo lahat yun, no? And then you pay the tax. Okay. It should be evaluated in the light of both the written terms of agreements and the actual conduct of the affected parties. So, yun yung magiging determination mo. Okay. In identifying the specific nature of the transaction involving transfer of intangibles or rights in intangibles, in identifying the nature of any intangibles transferred, and in identifying any limitations imposed by the terms of the transfer and the use of non-intangibles, no? So, ano yung mga transactions involving transfer of intangibles or rights in intangibles, no? Identify it with specificity, no? Sabi natin, kasama na yung customers list, kasama na yung mga secret process formula, no? So, ano pa yung i-determine mo? The nature of the intangibles and rights in intangibles that are transferred between associated enterprises. Kasi we're talking of arm's length principle. So, ibig sabihin, ang involved dito are related parties, no? Okay. So, where limitations are imposed on the rights transferred, it is also essential to identify the nature of such limitations and the full extent of the rights transferred. No? It should be noted in this regard that the labels applied to transactions do not control the transfer pricing analysis. No? So, for example, in the case of a transfer of the exclusive right to exploit a patent in country X, the taxpayer's decision to characterize the transactions either as a sale of all of the country X patent rights or as a perpetual exclusive license of a portion of the worldwide patent rights. So it does not affect the determination of the arm's length price if in either case the transaction being priced is a transfer of exclusive rights to exploit the patent. No? So, para ma-value natin ng maayos yung intangibles, we have to go deeper or be very specific with the nature of the transactions. Ano ba talaga yung kasama, no, sa actual? Kasi minsan sa written contract, ito lang yung tinransfer. Pero in fact, dun sa actual lahat tinransfer na. So ano yung dapat na gawin? We have to be alert kung ano talaga yung laman ng intangibles or ano yung mga kasama ng intangibles that are transferred, no? So I have discussed to you the transfer pricing issues involving intangibles. Nasabi ko sa inyo, very crucial and very important, at importante din that we have to disclose it or recognize intangibles in the financial statements, especially na filing na ngayon ng income tax return. So ano dapat natin gawin? Even sabi natin na it's too late, but we can start now, especially na sabi ko sa inyo, we are now living in a digitized economy. So with that, I would like to say thank you, no, sa mga sumama sa atin ngayong gabi with our live streaming, no? So good evening ulit sa Kanlaon kay Emily, diyan kina Banji, no, sa San Jose del Monte, kay Sir Eugene, no, sa Timog, kay Ma'am Lilian sa Manila po siya, si Ma'am Faye Herrera sa Mandaluyong, no? And then kay Sir Jeffrey Salceda, kay Sir Franz Manlangit, no? And then si Jacob si Jacob Smart Adventures, sabi niya, hello, magandang gabi po, no? So it's already 10 o'clock, kaya magpahinga na Jacob, no? So thank you very much sa lahat ng mga viewers natin, no? Sa Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao natin, ang mga kamag-anak, mga kakilala, kaibigan, no? So good evening and stay safe kasi lockdown na naman ulit, no? So stay safe po tayo. Kung pwedeng hindi na maglakad, hindi na pwedeng pumunta sa kung saan-saan, no? You stay at home, mag-aral, no? Tsaka ang dami nating matatapos na mga dapat gawin sa bahay, gawin na natin, no? So I would like to say thank you and let's call it a night. So thank you very much.